Number one thing that often people get stuck in that prevents them pursuing their goals and dreams in life is this concept. I'm going to read it here. This is from your book. You think you're stuck because you're not trying hard enough, but you're actually trying too hard in the wrong direction. Let's talk about that.
Well, who has not experienced that, right? So you can think about being in a situation with work where you're putting way too much energy into something, you're digging yourself in further, maybe you're overanalyzing or over-researching or overdoing it, and it's actually just depleting you, not making you feel better, making you feel worse, and you're like, why am I doing this at the end of the day? This isn't really where my heart and my soul wants to be putting my energy. But you could also be doing it in a relationship where you're chasing after a relationship or you're holding on to a relationship or you're in resentment and you're putting a lot of energy into your own mind around something or somebody. The nature of sort of our human mind is that we often think the best solution is to add more, do more, work harder. And that works well if you need to like dig yourself out of, something, dig a tunnel through something, or you need to, build a house. But it doesn't work well in the inner world, in our inner psychology. More is not always more. What is more is wiser, how to tune into a wiser center that can help you make a decision of where you want to put your energy, and actually tapping into places that I think are regenerative, where when we put energy in, we are getting energy back out. It's like one of those little batteries on your car when it gets into the mode and you see the battery is filling itself up because you're using your resources wisely.
So we're recording this right at the end of 2025.
Yes.
And even if you're not a typical New Year's resolution person, you can't help but to think about at the end of the year what you want for the next year, right? What are some typical things that you see if you use this idea that you're stuck because you're not trying hard enough, but you're actually trying too hard? Take the typical New Year's resolutions. What's an example of that people might be able to relate to that you see out there?
Sure. A typical New Year's resolution is I'm not going to my gym. And so therefore, I just need to try harder. I need to wake up earlier. I need to sign up for more classes and commit. And rather than looking at the underlying reasons, why am I not going to my gym? What are the motivational reasons why? Is it because actually where I find more energy is when I'm out like walking hills with a girlfriend? And I have some story in my head that doesn't count as exercise. A typical New Year's resolution may be something like I just need to get more dialed in my macronutrients or my biomarkers or all the things that we get all kind of nitpicky and overly focused on. And what ends up happening is we focus so much on it, all we can see is the mistakes, the ways in which we're not measuring up. And so we feel like we're spinning our wheels in the self-criticism and that which you water with your mind is that which grows. And so the higher the expectations and the more detailed we get, actually the worse we feel and the less motivated we feel and the more burned out we get by pursuing a diet and a way of eating that actually is really fun and nourishing. Like maybe you really enjoy going to the farmer's market with that same girlfriend or with your kids or with your partner. And so what's paradoxical is that oftentimes we can have a much bigger impact with a lot less effort when we can enter the flow of what I call our genius energy, that which naturally interests us, that which utilizes our strengths, that which highlights our character. When we get into that flow, things are a little bit easier for us. And when we align it with our values and wisdom, things are really easy for us, and we feel an intrinsic motivation to do it. We believe that it has to be hard for it to be effective. And that is a lie that actually I think we're sold, because the other option of like actually listening to our bodies, is it a whole body yes? Is this an energy add? Is this something that, in my wisest self I know is right for me? There's no one can sell that to you. And it's individual for everybody. Those examples of going for a walk with a girlfriend or going to the farmer's market are my story. But somebody else that's listening has a different story that they know, whether it's moving their body or maybe doing something with their finances. These are the top New Year's resolutions. So finances, body, and relationships. That you've had times in your life when it hasn't been so effortful and clenchy and clingy and like forcing. You've had times in your life where the world just opened up for you. What was happening for you then? And most likely what was happening for you then was you were using your genius, you were trusting and living from a place of wisdom and from a place of letting go of having to get it to be somewhere else, but rather being in the process with wise effort. So that's where I see people getting tripped up.
I think that you mentioned a really beautiful phrase there, and that phrase was letting go. Some folks are listening to this. I hope a lot of folks, and they're feeling like a sigh of relief. Their shoulders are dropping down. There's a little bit of less pressure around this thing that they thought they had to brute force in their life to make progress in. And anytime I've seen that someone has that realization, and I've had that realization, and I continue to have that realization of like, you know what? I don't have to brute force this thing that I'm trying to make progress on in my life. One of the other companion thoughts that sometimes comes up, this question is, why do I have this addiction to things being hard? And I'm using addiction as a broad term. I'm sure it's not like clinically the right word that's there, but why do some of us, including myself, have this addiction to needing things to be hard in our lives?
Well, anytime anyone says, why do I have this? Do I have anxiety, or why do I have this addiction to things being hard? I always take a biopsychosocial big picture, zoom out perspective. There's lots of reasons. Humans actually, evolutionarily, have a yearning to build mastery. It actually kind of feels a little bit good when you're growing. You know, that good kind of hard when you're doing a workout and you feel like, wow, for me, it's like I did half of a pull-up and before I only did a quarter of a pull-up. You know, that feels good. It feels satisfying to grow. But what we can do is we can turn that into a monster where we actually are always only focused on it's only good if it's hard. You know, that somehow the half of the pull-up is more important than the lying down in a shavasana at the end of a yoga class, which is not hard, but it's just as beneficial to our body, right? So we have a yearning to grow, and that can get kind of co-opted by our mind where everything has to be growth and has to be hard for it to work. And part of that can come from our early childhood experiences. We are reinforced by a school system. We're reinforced by our caregivers for doing hard stuff, you know, and for performance related stuff. But then there's also the psychosocial aspect of it. We're just kind of fed all the time, you know, the Nike Just Do It. Like we're kind of fed that through social media, through the, like we're kind of like, don't quit. Yeah. That rest or enjoying your life is lazy. And so we've kind of bought into that sort of social system around that. And then just sort of biologically, some of us have trained ourselves to just get really used to disconnecting from our bodies and even attuning to what our bodies need. And we're kind of so disconnected that all we know is harder, pushing more. We don't know the stillness or how to be in the here and now. We've lost that capacity.
There's a beautiful quote from your book that I pulled out over here. We think if we just fly harder, go faster, or push ourselves more, we will get out. We put our immense energy into overdrive, persisting even if it hurts us. And what I loved about that was the hurts us part. I think a lot of people who realize that it actually doesn't feel good. I don't feel great. I don't feel inspired when I'm trying to, my term that I'm using for this is brute force something just through effort, sheer will, push. And I've always seen in my life when I can understand that a pattern that I have is actually sacrificing something that I care even more about than being stuck in that pattern or being committed to that pattern, I have this awareness that, wow, if I actually really care about this thing, like what do I want from some of those goals that you mentioned? People want to, lose weight around New Year's. They want to make progress in their, their health. They want to get more fit. It might be their finances. let's take the first one. What do people want to do? They want to feel good in their body, right? And anybody who's made momentum and progress realizes that even if they haven't lost the weight or build the muscle that they exactly want, nothing feels better than leaving a workout of your choice or doing some movement of your choice or doing something where you just feel like, wow, I'm so excited about the progress that I made. And I'm celebrating myself, even if I haven't gotten that goal or that end thing that's there. And I know for me, when I see that this brute force is in my own version, and feel free to chime in on this, my own version is like, actually in keeping myself playing small by being committed to the fact that something has to be hard and running around in circles trying to solve that thing. And if I actually just step back and just do what you said, you know, think about, what does it look like to realize that I'm pursuing energy in the wrong direction and take a step back and reassess. There's a sense of like, there's a loss of identity that, oh, who am I if I'm not running around all the time? But there's an awareness that actually there could be an easier way to go about things. I know that was a little bit of a word salad, but I'm not as gifted as talking about these things as you are. But I just wanted to share my audience that even these things happen to those of us that are sitting in front of the microphone.
Absolutely. I mean, I came up with that line of, going harder at something and hitting your head against it. And how do you get free from the experience of, having a bird caught in my kitchen and watching what a bird does when it's caught in a kitchen is it tries to fly up and out, even if the up and out is at this big window, and it'll just do it more and harder and harder and harder. And whatever that is for you, that you are flying harder at the window and getting your head hit up against again. And it could be related to diet and exercise where we often just try and go harder at it. But it could also be in a relationship, like a relationship with your parent or in a friendship. If we're coaching ourselves that I just need to fly harder at it, we're going to get more and more injured. We end up doing the opposite, which is sitting on the kitchen floor of our life and saying, there's something wrong with me. I can't do this. I'm exhausted. And we move into what in positive psychology is called learned helplessness, where we're just like, I can't get out of here. I'm done. This is over. And if you're like me, when I'm at that point of learned helplessness, I just bail. I'm out. I'm done. It's over. We're done. I'm not talking to you anymore. So some of us may do that. Some of us may get into a depression. Some of us get into a self-blame kind of cycle. That bird that's caught in a kitchen, those two options of going harder at it or sitting on the floor and giving up will be in suffering. What that bird needs to do is to turn 3/4 of the way to the right or to the left or do a full 180 and look behind them, that there may be another way out, an open door that you didn't ever expect, but that's sort of maybe actually quite magical that's waiting for you to step into. And when you can take that open door, it requires an open mind. It requires courage. It requires some self-love to make that move. It's not that you don't fly, but you fly towards something else that you really care about in a flexible way. And in psychology, we call that process of becoming more flexible in our thinking and our behaving and our feeling and our sense of self, psychological flexibility. And it turns out that folks that are more psychologically flexible are better parents, have stronger relationships, can handle really horrible things happening to them much better because they're not stuck just going at it harder or sitting on the floor of their lives saying, I'm helpless.
That's powerful. Okay, we have number 2 on the list of traps that we all can find ourselves in that end up putting us in a position where we end up avoiding our goals and dreams in 2026. This is the antithesis to the traditional New Year's resolution approach that's out there, the brute force approach, the never quit, the just do it. This is the wise effort approach, your framework. And so the second big idea in this podcast is you're stuck because your energy is either overused, underused, or misdirected. What do you mean by that?
Overused, underused, or misdirected because it's driven by something that's not your values. It's driven by, you use the word avoidance, not wanting to feel something that you feel like you can't handle. I was driving here from Anaheim, and I was just on a, I send voice memos back and forth from my friends. You do this? It's like, I want to talk to you, but I don't really want to talk to you. Like, I want to talk to you and hear your voice, but I can't like handle a phone call back and forth. So I was sending a voice memo of a friend of mine who's in that purgatory of whether or not they should leave their spouse or not. They're like right on the edge of separation, right? And in their heart, they know they need to leave. All of us know they need to leave, right? But the tunnel, the path is so scary. It's so hard. It's so painful. And their mind is conjuring up all the horrible things about starting over again and being on their own and, the depressing apartment they're going to be in for a while, and, all the things. And so we don't want to go through that. But our avoidance of that actually creates misery in our life right now because you're in purgatory. You're in the place that, it won't happen until you make that decision, the courage to make the decision to go to the place that you fear, because it'll open up, because you know the direction that you want to go in life based on your values, based on deep down inside who you want to be, what you want to be about, what matters to you, what, like, at the end of your life, when you look back on it and you say, like, this was a meaningful life. It was a rich life, psychologically rich. It was a pleasurable life too. Those three components of well-being. In order to do that, it will require some discomfort. And the ways in which we avoid discomfort it's like fascinating. So I can see it in a session with a client. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'll sit across the way from a client and they'll start talking about something and they'll do little mini avoidance. So like look down, they don't want to talk about it. They'll change the subject. They'll start speaking really quickly as they're talking about it. It's as if it's like the hot coals of your life. They're running over them or going around them, right? And that very thing which you fear, whether it's a change you need to make in your job, it's a move you need to make, it's something you need to look at in your own self, like getting radically honest with yourself about some of the ways you're acting. That move, when you are driven by your values, becomes the very thing that opens you up and energizes you the most. And all the avoidance of it, the drinking after work, the eating, the going on your phone, we all have them. The avoidance of it is actually what's causing your suffering.
I think about in that category of your energy being overused, underused, or misdirected. I think about how much of the pursuit of so much health goals that people might have is actually a byproduct of them feeling, could be out of control in another area of life, or thinking that if I only fix this, then everything else will come together, right? That's one of the classic ones that people always
everyone
feel,
should answer that,
right?
Answer that line, that belief, because everyone has that.
Yeah. What would be a way to ask yourself that question? Like, hey, what is something that I'm pursuing in life that if I think that if that just got fixed, everything else would fall into place? Would that be a way to answer that, or ask yourself that? Like if somebody's listening today and they're trying to find, oh, hey, do I have any goals that I'm applying unwise effort on? And that they're actually, the way that I'm approaching it is masking something deeper that's there.
I said everyone can answer that question. And what you have found, if you do a little perspective taking. So perspective taking is a psychological process that helps us become more psychologically flexible. And we can take perspective on ourselves. We can take someone else's perspective. We can move our perspective around. And it can really help with this particular dilemma, which is the belief that when this gets better, I'll feel better. Or if only this got fixed, then my life will be better, right? And everyone right now has their list. It's not just one thing. It's like maybe like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Like when my house remodel is done, then I'll feel better. When I lose that like 5 pounds or that, I'll feel more confident. Or when I'm just through this stressor at work, I'll feel better.
If my kid would just start doing this.
When my child sleeps through the night, then parenting will be easier.
When my child stops leaving his cereal bowl of milk in his drawer, everything will be better.
There you go. So that's from 2 months to 16 years.
Yeah.
What happens if you actually do a little rewind, think about yourself 20 years ago or 10 years ago, depending on how old you are. What were you thinking 10 years ago was the thing? And here's two questions. Did that thing actually happen for you? And did it alleviate all your suffering? Or was it a short term, things got a little better and then things got a little worse, right? Because and then the other question is, did it not happen for you? And were you actually surprised that you were absolutely okay? We live on the surface of our lives. So we live in the waves. We go up, we go down, we go up, we go down. And when things are good, we're kind of worried that they're going to get bad. We don't really actually experience the good. And then when they're bad, we're like, it's always going to be like this, or we're anticipating it getting worse. The wise effort move is not trying to manage the waves of life, but to go down underneath them and take that wiser perspective. This is, if you have a teenager or a toddler or a newborn, there's things about it that are hard. Absolutely. If you're out of work or you have work, there's things about it that are hard. And if we think that it's those things, changing those things is going to get our life together, we are in basically setting ourselves up to not grow. Because the growth is when you can have that step back perspective to say, yes, there's things about this that are difficult. And the reason why they're difficult is because they connect to what I care about. And then could I actually step into that caring self with this difficulty and show up with this difficulty in the here and now with this body, with these 5 pounds? And if extra pounds or whatever it is, if I'm showing up in that space, then I actually can have complete freedom and joy and satisfaction, even with the circumstances that I'm in here and now. I'm less dependent on the waves of life changing for me to feel happy. That is like, if you can do that, then all of a sudden you have a psychological skill that you can meet anything in life. And I've experienced that personally because I'm a super striver and I go after things. Right. I go after the next, and I'm constantly like, where's the next thing? And I found my way, going up these ladders. Stephen Covey, the
Seven habits.
Seven habits, right? So he talks about what ladder is your wall against, right? And I'm just climbing ladders. But what I've discovered in my work and in the research and, tons of contemplative wisdom is that it's not about even what wall your ladder is against. It's about what rung you are on in this ladder and how are you moving in it? Are you harming yourself? Are you harming someone else? If someone videoed you, would you feel good about this interaction that you're having right now? And that's a full representation of what you care about. So then it doesn't matter as much what the outcome is. It's about the process that you're in, which I know everyone says, but actually that is a big truth with a capital T. A lot of the outcomes that we think are going to happen are not going to happen the way that we think they are. And we may find ourselves very dissatisfied, even if we get the thing we want.
Before we go into number 3, give us the little zoom out of who you are, why this topic matters to you so much, and your lived experience that has put you in this position to say that there's a different way to go about pursuing our goals and dreams in life.
Yeah, I feel like answering that question of who are you is, I could answer 1,000 different ways of who am I. But I have had a path of came into this world and am a human that's extremely sensitive to other humans, and it's just part of who I am. I think it's probably my nature, my biology, but also my early childhood experiences. And one of the ways that I learned to manage that sensitivity when the waters got rough for me, everyone has rough waters. For me, waters got particularly rough when I was in adolescence. And the way I learned how to sort of survive that, work harder, try harder, was to pursue perfection, academics, but also turn off my system by not eating. And when I was 14, 15 years old, I dropped from 125 pounds to 72 pounds and was hospitalized and started this journey of long journey of both disordered eating, but also the magical things that happened for me and through recovery, which is often the case when you go through something hard and you stay open to the process, all sorts of things happen. So in that path, I became really interested in psychology. I became really interested in biophysiology and in our relationship between our bodies and interoceptive awareness. And I also became really interested in Buddhism and contemplative teachings and how we relate to our own minds. And I went on to go research eating disorders and be involved in that academic track. But what is often the case, so I would say my two sort of threads throughout my life is this emotional sensitivity, but also this perseverance. And those got hijacked again when I was in graduate school. And I ended up relapsing when I was in graduate school, which then shifted my path again. So I've had this sort of like, as many of us do, in yoga, they call it samsara. We go around and around. It's like, wow, I'm here again. I'm here again. Like I'm 40 years old. I'm 45 years old. I'm whatever. And I'm still stuck on this round, but I don't see it as like, you're here again. I see it more as like a labyrinth of like, there's a lesson, there's another lesson in this round for you to learn. And your soul will not let you escape it until you learn it. So I've learned this lesson many, many times. And this book-wise effort comes out of the lessons that I've learned academically, but also through my own personal experience, through coaching people, and through just the wisdom that comes from having done it so many times, to share that there's another path than the going at it harder or sitting on the kitchen floor and saying, I can't.
In your story, you chat about how in that sort of, I'm sure there was a lot of mini cycles that were there, but in that big second cycle of you falling into that relapse when you were older, this was a time period where you were in your school, right? And you were married at the time?
I was partnered with with my now husband.
With your now husband?
Yes.
And you had this moment of awareness where you saw yourself, you had this pattern of, binging and purging that was there. But you talk about how you saw yourself in the mirror and you got this glimpse of you, I think, stuffing your face or whatever it might be. And in that moment, like something clicked because you saw. Now, I might have gotten the simplified version of that, but why do you think it was that time that the buildup of the right awareness seemed to be that unlock for you in your cycle of learning the lessons of your pattern? And I might have gotten some aspects of that story wrong, but please clarify me if
Yeah, no. So actually what I saw in that mirror, which is a true sign of like wisdom and transcendent self, was I didn't see myself. I saw the clients that I work with.
Mm.
And when I looked in the mirror and I saw the bags under my eyes, and then what happens if you purge a lot is you get salivary gland enlargement. So like you get like the cheeks that kind of look like kind of chick monkey cheeks. And I looked in the rearview mirror. I was in like this gross gas station, right? Because I was in this, when you're in striving or you're in like your thing, you're not aware. You have to stay unaware to do the thing. You have to be semi kind of almost dissociative, checked out. So I saw myself, but I didn't just see me. I saw the many women that struggle with what I struggled with, and that I was actually working on treating at the university. I was running randomized controlled trials. And that evoked in me one of our most powerful resources, and there's a tremendous amount of now psychological research behind this, which is the resource of compassion. I actually cared for myself.
Mm.
And when you, I mean, if you're a parent, you know this, like love, well, you will do anything for love. I mean, I still get up in the middle of the night with my 16-year-old. It doesn't ever end, just so you know that. It never ends. I was up at the middle of the night. He's worried about a chemistry test. And he's like, Mama, come in. So the power of love is something that opens us, allows us to move toward the thing that we think we can't do, which for me was saying, I have to step out of my PhD program. Do you know how hard it is to get into a clinical psychology PhD program? Like the acceptance rates are 1%.
Mm.
This was a program that I had spent so much time, and I was clinging to it, and I was like, but I have to do it. I'll just figure it out. I'll get recovery. The truth was I needed to surrender everything. I need to be willing to let all of it go to pursue this love for me, but really it was a love for the people that I serve. And it was that interconnection feeling, like when you're out hiking and you're like, I'm one with the mountains. It was that kind of feeling, which is a transcendent state. It's like the default mode network is not as active. It's no longer about me and my small life and, am I going to get found out? It was about, no, there's something so much more here. So I surrendered, called my advisor. I went home and I passed all the binge food to my husband is like the best on the planet because he's been through all this with me. But I'm like, here's the Reese's Buttercups. Here's the Ben and Jerry's. Take it. I'm done. I'm willing now. I'm willing. And that willingness, like the willingness to let go, going back to let go, is actually quite a liberating place when you can turn the corner, to my friend that needs to leave the relationship. Once he's actually in that space of leaving, and it's like driving with like the top down, you're finally free.
Free. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freedom.
Your freedom from your own constraints that you applied to yourself. I'm just jumping in here for a moment. I have so much compassion for your friend who's going through this situation, but I can imagine having had other friends or family members, even family members who were in, abusive relationships that we had no clue about. And then hearing that for years, they carried the mental weight of, what will other people think? And I can't do this. And this is selfish. And it's not the right time to leave. And the kids are about to go to college, or all the things that might be there.
The
right?
story. Yes.
And yet, if their own daughter or son was going through this, what would they do? First of all, they'd give them a hug.
Yeah.
They'd hold them. And they say, listen, sweetie, you put in so much effort in this. You've done all the things that you could do. And sometimes we can find ourselves in a situation that just, it's not meant for us. And it's not also meant for the other person. And the people that care about us and rely on us, it's not meant for them either. So I want you to know you're okay. Like right now in this moment, you're okay. And you're free. And you don't have to worry about anybody else that's out there, their judgments, what society thinks you should do, not do, anything. Right now, we just need to pause for a moment. What do you actually need right now? What do you need to start feeling better, whole in your body, and more complete out of this rat race of all these mental constraints that we've been wearing for such a long time, which a lot of them aren't even our own thoughts. They've been inherited from some caretaker that was, looking after you, or watching a movie and seeing the Disneyfication of romance that's out there. So in just that moment, I had a glimpse of your friend and just feeling like so much, compassion for her or anybody in that situation, and saying, if I had a daughter, a son, a grandchild, and they were in this exact situation, what would they need from me in that moment? And what does that look like for us to give that to ourselves?
I'd mentioned learned helplessness as a term from like 80s psychology, Seligman, but there's a newer term, which is creative hopelessness, which is when you actually give up hope that doing the same thing harder is going to be what's going to get you out. When you do that, you can get radically creative. And that's what happened for me in my graduate experiences. I gave it up. I was like, fine, I'm done. I'm out. I'm going to I'm in Boulder. I'm going to go to this yoga ashram. I'm going to start reading about what I really am interested in reading about. I'm going to go find out who's doing what I really care about. And I got bold, and I ended up, ironically, going back to the same program. But I went and pursued a psychiatrist at Stanford who was doing this really at the time, like new approach to working with eating disorders called dialectical behavior therapy. And I'm like, I want to learn that. That has like Zen in it, and it's got like behaviorism, and it's like super fresh. I'm excited about that. And I was able to, after some time off and completely letting go back and pursue it my way. Pursue it in a way that was in that river of energy with some banks on it. Like, these are my values. The banks are going to help me make the decision, making sure that I'm, having parameters so I can do this well without relapsing. But entering the flow of energy of like a river goes around rocks. It doesn't turn left because there's a rock there. So that's what can happen for folks. And that's the bird. I'm so many metaphors. I'm like a metaphor queen. But that's the bird turning around the kitchen and find the door's already open. You just didn't see it. And it's exciting. We're so scared. We're just so dominated by fear as humans. Understandably, that's how we survived. We're just the ancestors of fearful people because they're the ones that survived. They passed on their genetic load to us. We're afraid. And we also are incredibly resourceful and creative. And when driven by love, when driven by wisdom, there are places you don't even know are possible for you. And my guess, if you're doing New Year's resolutions, they're not even on your New Year's resolution list because you can't even see them yet.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing your story and being obviously so vulnerable about it. That's the obviously the hero's journey that we want for all of us, is to having go through these lessons and to realize that they were there for a reason. They were there for a purpose. And in those tough times, we had the opportunity to unlock some of this genius inside of us, right? The subtitle of your book, How to Focus Your Energy, Your Genius Energy on What Matters Most. We unlock those things, but if it wasn't for those tough times, and some of us might be going through some of those tough times or those sticky situations or those patterns right now, we wouldn't be able to turn that story into something that has the opportunity to impact the world, our family, ourselves for the better. So let's continue down the list if that sounds good. You've been doing fantastic. I've been loving all the things and the insights and the truth bombs you've been sharing. Number 3 on our 7 of the big ideas for how to stop being in a place where you're avoiding your goals and dreams in 2026. Number 3 is you're chasing goals that don't actually meet your deeper yearnings. Talk about that trap that people find themselves in.
Oh, this is the trap of the sort of promise of when I get there, it'll make me happy. The finish line keeps on moving. And deep down inside, it's not really what you want, but you are, you're pursuing it because it's a should. You have a story, you have a rule. Oftentimes our mind's inflexibility is what flips us around on that one. Maybe you don't really believe that you deserve what you really want. Maybe you're afraid of what other people will think if you actually do that, right? And so you chase it. And it ends up, you end up incredibly depleted in that chase because you're constantly running, but you're never getting fed. And the true, if I think about my own life, the chase for me, it's always been academic. Like that's my thing. Well, body chasing, if I can get even when I was 72 pounds, I could point out on my body the things that, my stomach was too big. Really? Wow, that's distorted, right? But that same kind of distortion, I was talking to a researcher. I just did this big conference in Anaheim, and I was presenting on a stage, like 450 people there watching. But there was people that were, very esteemed professors presenting. And I was having private dinner with one of them, and they said to me, I still look at all my citations and I don't think there's enough, right? They've made it in the world. Or I work with people with a ton of money that have made it in the world and they still feel a sense of lack. So that kind of wanting, craving, lacking that drives us, it is an endless pursuit and you will never get there. You will be depleted by it. You will be dissatisfied. What actually helps us feel complete and whole and energized is recognizing that it is all available to us in the here and now. Everything that you want, that you think you want, is actually pointing to a state of being that is already available. So if you think, here's what I would do with a client, I would say something like, they say, I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, so when you lose 10 pounds, what will you be doing that you're not doing now? Oh, I'll be going out more. I'll feel more comfortable going out for a drink. I'll feel more comfortable going to a yoga class. I'll feel more comfortable getting in a bathing suit. I'll feel more comfortable at work. I'll buy myself nicer clothes. Okay. So if you did all those things, what is it that you think would happen for you? I'd feel better about myself. I'd feel more confident. I'd have better relationships. I would have a little more ease in my life. I wouldn't have so much stress. Okay, now we got your goals. More ease, less stress, better relationships. Let's put those down. If those are your goals, what actually brings you ease? What actually deepens your relationships? What actually helps you with your stress? Because you're pursuing something that's actually completely orthogonal to all of that. It is not lining you up with all that. It's actually moving you further away from decreased stress and deeper connections. And I know that from my own personal experience because I've taken that route. It is an endless route. Let my mistakes be your message. It will not get you there. I know that standing on a stage with 450 people is not as good for me. It does not feel as satisfying as being with a group of my 3 favorite people, like on the beach in my sweatpants, just like loving each other and talking about our lives. Like that to me that's enough. But the pursuit leads us off track to some empty place that isn't deep down inside that we know we need or want.
So in that example where you're talking about the state, like being on stage and speaking in front of people, was that related to this idea, which is our number 4, which is you're stuck because you're running from discomfort instead of learning how to hold on to it? Were you saying in that analogy that, hey, it might be uncomfortable to be on stage, but still doing these tough things and leaning into discomfort is actually one of the pathways into wise effort? Was I making that connection, or did I miss it?
For me on a stage now is different than me on a stage back. I mean, I wasn't on stages when
Early
I was
in
in
your
graduate
career.
school, but I
Yeah.
was an equivalent of like presenting in front of an academic something. My relating to that experience is completely different now than how it used to be.
Mm.
So my relating to it is I am not standing up here to get your approval. I'm not over preparing to make sure everything is scripted and I'm like coloring inside the lines so you like me. I think I changed my slides that morning. I went up there like, this is what you got, like how this is with you. You've not sent me questions and I have not canned answers. And this interview will be different than any other interview that I ever do. Because I show up as me. And what is it that I have to offer in this situation that is of true service to those that are here? Now that stage I was training therapists. And I see part of my life's work is if I can impact you and then this impacts the people you work with, then that is incredibly regenerative and resourceful and aligned with my values. It's using my message to be of benefit to others that are suffering in some form or another. That is like why I'm here on this planet. And therefore I will get on a stage for that reason, not for the reason of like, is this a good Instagram post?
Or will, as you mentioned before, like, will people like me? Will my colleagues accept me?
Yeah.
Will I be seen in a better fashion? And then the flip side of that is that, and this is where you talk about the trap. The trap is avoiding fear, doubt, grief, or uncertainty feels protective in the short term, but it shrinks your life over time. And the way out, as you talk about in the book, is build the capacity to stay present with discomfort so it stops controlling your choices. If you want approval, as I'm hearing from you, if you want approval, and that's why you want to do something in the first place or get on that stage, that fear of not getting the approval might have you even quit before you even start.
Right.
Or be so nervous during because you're constantly checking yourself to say, am I getting approval from these people? Oh, I'm not getting approval. I must be doing something wrong. You panic, you're not present anymore, and you start effing up.
Or you shape your whole presentation for approval.
Instead of things that actually drive value, which could be new, different, challenging ideas to people.
Exactly. And so the pursuit of approval, I mean, Elise Lonin talks about this in her book, Choosing Wholeness, or these sort of 3 primary pursuits that we often are driven by. And it's good to ask ourselves this, like, am I driven by approval right now? Am I doing what I'm doing so that they like me? Am I driven by control? Am I doing what I'm doing right now so that I can make sure it all turns out my way? Or am I driven by security? Am I doing what I'm doing right now so I can stay safe? And when we do that, it shapes our behavior. It pushes us around. The true question is, why am I doing what I'm doing right now? Is it aligned with how I want to be in the world, who I want to serve? I actually really do believe that humans are designed, we are pro-social species, much like I have beehives, right? So like the bees in the beehive are taking care of each other's little brood, the little nursery bees, right? Everyone's working together. We are designed to be of service to each other. So is what I'm doing right now of service to others? Is what I'm doing right now a whole body yes? Like my body is saying, I may be afraid but this is where I'm supposed to be, right? Is what I'm doing right now using my genius? Actually, I kind of am great at presenting. My dad was an attorney, so he used to like walk around our kitchen giving his whatever, practicing his trial. And so I kind of learned the art of presentation, and it's kind of something that I love to do. So it uses my genius, that improv aspect of it. And is what I'm doing right now aligned with my values? When you can answer yes to those, then you're no longer driven by the avoidance and control and approval. You're driven by a source of energy that is much more sustainable and is much more not impacted by the waves, because you will get approval and you will get disapproval. Not everyone's going to like you. Not everyone's going to like it. Not everyone's going to feel moved by it. Actually, this morning I was in line. I had people come up after my talk and they were like, "Oh, it was amazing, blah, blah." And then I was in line getting my coffee when I was at the hotel before driving here. And this guy walks up to me, and when I present, I have this huge white piece of paper, like a notepad that I often use in therapy, where I'll like have people like draw what it feels like in your body on the notepad, and I'll hold the notepad up, and so I was in line for coffee, and this guy walks up to me and he sees my big notepad, and he's like, "Oh wow, are you a presenter here?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did. I presented yesterday. I'm leaving today." And he's like, "Oh yeah, what did you present on?" And I said, "Oh, Wise Effort. I'm Diana Hill." And he's like, "Oh, I think I went to that one." Talk about ego on the floor. I was like, "Really? It wasn't like the most magical presentation of your life?" He totally forgotten that he was even there.
He's like, "What did you talk about again?"
Yeah, exactly. Cool notepad. So so the rise and fall of our ego, the rise and fall of our bodies, the rise and fall, that is living in the waves of life. And we have to, just get better at that rise and fall, get better at being uncomfortable. As Steve Hayes, the founder of ACT, often says, it's not about feeling better. It's about getting better at feeling. So I can get that feedback from the people right after my talk that are like, "That was amazing. You're changing my life." And I don't take that too personally. And then I can get the feedback from the guy at the coffee shop was like, "Who are you?" And I don't take that too personally. Because really, like you asked me at the beginning, like, who am I? I'm me, but I'm also the woman in the rearview mirror that's purging in the bathroom too, and kind of not attached to that kind of stuff anymore. I'm interested in the flow of energy, and am I offering what I have to offer in a true, authentic way that could be helpful to people, but also helpful to me, that it's a flow.
It reminds me of that quote. I don't think it has attribution, but praise and blame are both the same. When we start living in a world where we understand that, okay, gratitude from somebody, like genuine gratitude that's meaningful, other stuff where it's an appreciation for something, it has some depth around it. That's obviously one thing. But praise, right? The same situation, person, YouTube comment, book review that will praise, and then that will blame, those are both the same, and they have nothing to do with who you are. You can use them as little bits of information to guide yourself in one direction or another. But when you live life knowing that that's the same, they don't have the highs and they don't have the lows that are there. They're just, "Oh, wow, that's a rock. That's something that's there. That's a tree. That's something that exists in the world. Okay, cool. I can use it as information if I want. And if it's not relevant to me, I don't have to. And then I continue to move on with my life."
There's a field of research on self-compassion that has looked at the difference between self-compassion and self-esteem. I'm a child of the 80s. In the 80s, everybody was about self-esteem, like Stuart Smiley of the Saturday Night Live. You're smart enough, you're good enough, and gosh darn it, people like you, and everybody is special. And we were trying to build people's self-esteem. And what they have found in this line of research is that actually self-esteem is somewhat closely related to narcissism, and self-esteem is that roller coaster ride. Because when people like you and you do well and you're getting the A's or the high performance, or your body is right in the right way you want it to be, you feel good. But if you're average and things aren't going well, and maybe your body's not right where it wants to be, you don't feel good. Self-compassion is actually the belief that I have value, I have worth, independent of all of that. As you said, like how would you treat a good friend, or what would you say to somebody that's in a difficult circumstance? You would offer them compassion, but you would offer that same kind of kindness and encouragement and even fierceness, the fierce side of compassion, like I'm going to back you up. I'm going to be here for you. That is self-compassion. And self-compassion predicts all sorts of incredible things, like more resilience. Actually, people tend to maintain their exercise habits longer if they're self-compassionate. And they're driven really more by, I'm going back to love again, but they're driven more by that than riding the waves. So that's where it's at, is to develop compassion, self-compassion, and get off the rat race of approval.
Which is what we wish for ourselves and everybody who's listening here too.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful is that here we are going through this framework that you expand much more on in the book, especially this next section that we're going to get into. And I'm so thankful that we live in a world and day and age. You're talking about growing up in the 80s. I was born in 82, same generation. It's just, I remember the earliest times that I would look for like self-help books or even like helpful books on health. Like you had to dig so deep. It worked so hard to even come across anything. Now, obviously, one of our challenges is there's so much information that's out there, but at least there's tools, resources that can help people. The message can be there for when you're ready to hear that message for where you are in a way that we've never had before, which I'm really appreciative of. Speaking of that message, a big chunk of the book is around this idea of genius energy. And this goes to number 5 on our list. Number 5, big idea. Your strengths are backfiring because they're being overused or misapplied. And obviously that entails a lot, but I think it's a perfect opportunity to break down this section. There's a bunch of questions in the book that help you identify as the reader, and anybody can pick up a copy of the book. We have a link in the show notes. I believe it's out there by the time the podcast is going to be there. Wise Effort, how to focus your genius energy on what matters the most. So you can get clear on your genius energy and then help us understand what happens when you get clear on your unique genius energy and how you show up in the world.
Yes. So this word genius energy, I've gotten 2 kind of responses to it. Some people were like, yeah, right on. And some people were like, I feel like I'm a narcissist. I shouldn't say I'm a genius. Everyone has geniuses to them. If you have a dog, your dog has a genius that's uniquely your dog. If you have a best friend, your best friend has a genius. Even the oak trees outside my home in Santa Barbara have a genius to them. I mean, they have thick bark to protect them from fires. They have these waxy leaves that protect them from water evaporation, right? They're a genius. And you do too. And I took a psychological deep dive research kind of angle approach into genius and identified these 5 aspects of what makes up your genius. And I'll start there before I talk about how it can get off track. Start with the positive before I take you into the dark and dirty. So your genius qualities are things like your emotional intelligence. If you think about like your group of friends, and they call you for a certain reason. Like you may have friends that call you because you can be really non-judgmental about things, or maybe they call you because you're the one that lets them cry, or they call you because you're kind of steady in a crisis, right? That's part of your emotional intelligence. Your genius is also your interests. Like after school when you were a kid and you'd come home and you'd do that thing that you loved to do, whether it was like roller skating along the sidewalk, or it was trading baseball cards, or it was like, I used to go down to this creek behind my house and look for nasturtium flowers that grow in the winter here. And that was actually part of my genius, my connection to nature, my connection to flowers. It sounds bizarre, but it's actually important. If you come to any of my retreats or you come to any of my workshops, I will be making like flower mandalas, and we'll be like out collecting and creating altars together with flowers. It's actually how I bring my genius to work, right? And so we have our interests, we have our emotional intelligence, your personality pattern is part of your genius, your talents. There's things about you, and we could even say this about you, Drew. There's things about you that come easily to you that do not come easily to others. When I walked in today and I walked into this space, which could be for some people intimidating, being on a camera with ridiculously bright white lights on my face, you were just engaging in conversation easily. You didn't go right into like, here's how we're going to prepare for the podcast. You're just curious. You were naturally wanting to talk and shared a little bit about your life and asked about my life. That is part of your genius. It's what makes you a great interviewer, that you have an ease to you and a desire to connect with people, right? So we have that, your talents. And finally, your character strengths. The qualities about you, like when you're in a hardship and there's certain things that you show up like are really strong, respected qualities that show up during a hardship. Are you able to be like a leader, or are you super organized, or do you have a zest for life, or do you always hold out hope? Optimist. Together, these qualities, which develop because of just your temperament, but also because of life circumstances, probably a lot of them from difficult life circumstances, are your genius. In the book, I have people go through a series of questions to identify some of these core geniuses. The next question is that genius being utilized well? Your example, the example of you as a conversationalist that can make people feel at ease, that genius is the right seed in the right soil for you in doing this work. It's flourishing. You can see it's done really well, right? It's just done really well. Sure, a lot of effort behind it, but the true placement of the genius in the right place means that it's guided with wisdom and doing well. Maybe there's some other genius qualities about you, I don't know you well enough, that are being overused, that you're relying too much on, or that maybe you need that conversational quality in another area of your life. You're not doing it. I don't know if you have a brother. You're not doing it with your brother. You're not doing it with your mother. You're not doing it with your partner. And you could use that genius in those spaces. Like, are you sitting down and asking them the same kind of questions that you asked me? And maybe that relationship could be deepened if you did that. So part of wise effort is discovering what that genius is, and how that genius can become your problem if you're not using it, or the other side of it, you're overusing it, which is my problem, my persistence, and how to guide it with more wisdom.
I love that. I want to touch on that, but I went through some of those questions, and I'll just share a little bit of some things that came up. I was doing it on a voice memo, so I ended up having to throw it into ChatGPT to kind of write it up a little bit. I told you we just have a newborn, so we're running around a little bit less time. So voice memos. I use this app called Whisper. It is amazing for doing all that. No affiliation at all. So a couple things that came up for me that you mentioned. So the talents. I love, for my audience, trying to translate some complex science or deep research into clear human language. I love asking questions that unlock insight rather than perform intelligence. I love building trust with my audience and the people that I'm interviewing, to get them to, not for performance, but to get them to open up in a way that maybe they haven't had to, especially people on book tours. They give a lot of the same answers and other things like that. It's the nature of the game that's out there, but hopefully we can pierce through that and we can share something different and unique, in a way that they haven't done before, that would be novel and interesting to my audience that would be there. I like finding the through line in stories and ideas to help people zoom in and zoom out. So those are some of the talents that I went through, with my interests and character strengths and some of my emotional intelligence. But this was the part that was really interesting for me when I was going through that and sort of synthesizing based on the work and the quizzes that you had, was there are ways that I know that I'm using my wise effort. And separate from the podcast, I am a serial entrepreneur. I love building things, investing in things, and especially doing it with long-term friends that I've had and people in my men's group that I've been connected to for over 12 years now, 15 years now. There's ways that I know that I'm using my wise effort. So I'm choosing clarity over volume. I'm making fewer, higher leverage bets. I'm guided by my values, which we're going to get into a second, and not urgency. That's something that I struggled with a lot in my younger years. Urgency, especially the urgency and the priorities of other people, and adopting them as my own urgencies and priorities when they weren't necessarily. And I'm synthesizing instead of forcing. And when I do a lot of that, I feel energized after creating and not depleted. And the last one is when my genius turns into unwise effort, which I want you to explain this, but I'll just give a couple examples since I'm kind of on a roll here for my audience after going through your questions. A couple examples. When my genius turns into unwise effort, when our strengths are used in a way against us, so to speak, putting that in air quotes, I overuse responsibility and feel like everything depends on me. I know a lot of people can relate to that. Just one thought on that I want to share is that there's also a huge egoic component of everything depends on me. If I don't do it, it's not going to be done right. And deep down inside for me, I know that that's come from a place and time in my life where I moved around a lot as a kid. I always had to get good at being the new kid and making friends from scratch and not having friends, moving to a new city. And that feeling of like, did I have people who had my back? And being in a position as a young boy, many times feeling like, I don't feel like, even though I didn't have the words for it, I don't feel like people have my back right now, or I don't feel supported in the way that I need to. And so how did I counteract those life circumstances? I tried to make myself indispensable, and I took on responsibilities and did things and was the teacher's pet in situations, or was the guy with the resources to help people, do and accomplish things. But when that genius turns into unwise effort, I'm over dipping on that thing. It's like I've become that little boy again. I've taken on too much responsibility, and I've stepped into that ego, and I've forgotten that I'm in this trap that I've created where I've convinced myself that everything depends on me.
Yeah.
Right? Two more that I'll share. I won't go through all of them. I confuse intensity with effectiveness, and I produce more instead of clarifying better. Those are a few things that came up for me, which I thought was really useful. In fact, I texted my sisters who work with me on this podcast. I said, we all got to take this quiz. And as a process of us even understanding each other better, because we love each other, we care about each other, I want to know what shows up for you. What are your geniuses? I have a pretty good idea, but also I want to know, when does your genius turn into unwise effort, so that I, as your friend, for my wife as her husband, that I can help you catch those things, just like I want you to help me catch them and say, hey, sweetie, I don't know if you're in that zone of genius right now, and what would it look like if we step back a little bit? So this is me sharing with my audience that I thought the quiz was fantastic, and going through it was really beautiful, and I highly recommend other people do too. So what would you like to share on top of that?
It's so great. I mean, I'm listening to you as I would listen to a client. And when I listen to clients, I have like a mental highlighter of this feels really important. So a few things that felt really important to me about what you said was the first part where you could distill that initial genius about what you do in your work as a podcaster, but in other areas, is that you are magnificent at developing trust. It's part of your genius. And I get that now. It's like that feels more like there's a capacity to develop trust with people. And then the second part of this genius is the responsibility. You can take responsibility for your own life, for making things happen. And that responsibility developed, as you said, out of sort of this hardship when everything is, out of control. I got to drive this thing. No one else is going to drive it for me. And it saved your life. Many of us, our geniuses save our lives and actually are very helpful to us. So then the question becomes, okay, so how could I maybe also, when I feel like my genius is off track, I can identify what are the triggers to my genius being off track. When things feel unstable or uncertain, then I tend to do some things to overuse my genius, to take too much responsibility, to try and control things. I get stuck in a story that I'm the only one that can do it. I avoid the discomfort of having it be a little amorphous and out of control because that's scary for me. That's my childhood. I avoid that discomfort, right? And I hold on to tight to things that I could potentially suffocate them. Entrepreneurship is a radical holding lightly to a lot of things. And you've figured out, okay, what I need to do is I need to clarify over, be clear over urgency. That's really soothing to that responsible part of you. We can slow things down. But the other question is, how do I bring that trust side of me in? And maybe you're really good at developing trust in others, but could you turn the arrow of that around to develop trust in yourself? Take that genius and turn it towards yourself, especially as a new father. I mean, every kind of initiation, rough initiation or beautiful initiation that we go through is another opportunity to learn something that we need to learn. And my guess is that this is another initiation for you, both rough and beautiful, becoming a father, and to develop that trust, cultivate that trust, and that will help you with the responsibility part. What I love about that exploring of genius is there's also like a super strategic thing that you can do with it, is all that stuff that you just wrote down about what your genius is, make for a really rad job description. it makes for, I work a lot with like coaches and people in, coaching coaches or people in business. And I'm like, go through this genius exercise and you will now have a description that is unique to you, totally unique to you, that is 100% authentic and true, that you can put out into the world, that isn't just the canned, I'm a good guy. I'm responsible or whatever. Hard worker, whatever. It's very, very granular. And that's what's fun about it. So I love this concept of genius once you get on board. And then you'll start to spot everyone's genius everywhere. Like my husband's genius and my kid's genius. And then you'll see, oh, wait, their genius is totally their problem in this situation. I can see it. It's like, run away from them. And it's being able to laugh about it or have humor about it. Sometimes I'll do at a dinner when I was working on this book, I'd like have people over and be like, okay, so what do you, like a group of friends, like, what do you think, Jill's genius is? What do you think Susan's genius is? And when does your genius become a problem for you, Susan? And just having that self-awareness can be really helpful too.
It's so powerful because it's so easy to see it in other people.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important to go through something like an exercise like this in your book, because sometimes we have so many stories in our head and our genius is so obvious that it's so easy to overlook. And sometimes people don't want to accept that that's part of their genius because it feels too simple. It seems it should be a lot more complicated. It should be there's 1,000 different reasons why people resist owning their genius. It could be afraid of that. Am I good enough? You know all the technical reasons that are there, but yet there's a simplicity that's there when we see it in other people that, yes, okay, yeah, you're so much more than just this one genius. You have a lot of interest. You're good at a lot of different things, but that doesn't mean that there isn't this major through line through who you are that can have all sorts of different applications in your life, right? It's the simplicity. And yet we would never hold that person to that. I think especially a lot of type A personalities, I've seen my friends, and I didn't have this language of genius. There's other modalities that I've explored over the years where it could be like your core strength, whatever it might be. You hear it, you see it, it's like, can it be that simple? Could it really be that simple that is my genius? And it's like, it's both beautiful and it's scary. Why is that scary to some people?
It may be scary because some of the things that are genius are not things that actually have been complimented or rewarded. I grew up with people telling me all the time, you're too sensitive. I'd sit
That's a good one.
I'd sit at a holiday table or a dinner table and we'd be like all sorts of people coming over and I knew who was drinking in the kitchen and I knew who was fighting with who. And I could feel the feelings inside my, a family member that was depressed. I mean, I'm like, 10. I'm like antennae everywhere, right? And I'm too sensitive and I'm overreacting and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, this is okay. But what I learned later on, I mean, first I shut it down, but what I learned later on is that kind of sensitivity makes you a really good therapist. I am so tuned in and attuned and locked in when somebody's talking. And it's almost like in that movie Ghost when was it Patrick Swayze that gets into Whoopi Goldberg's body or Whoopi Goldberg gets one of them? Like I can actually like go in there and I can feel it out and then I can come back out, like that's part of my genius. I don't know. I mean, and if not directed wisely, wow, that could cause a lot of problems for me too. It is what it is. It's neutral. And then for some people, their genius, they just don't see it because they're just like, that's just who I am. It's not that big of a deal. And other people are like, well, no, this is like.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, like my UPS person. Okay, so the UPS lady comes to my house. She's got like the cookies in the pocket for the dog. She's got like the giant box. She's rushing to the door. She's on time. Like she's like a genius at efficiency and multitasking and, all these things. And she's like in a good mood. I'm like, I love my UPS lady. She comes to my house a lot. All of us have people that are coming to our house way too often with packages. Have you ever noticed they have a genius? Same thing with like the guy that works at Trader Joe's at the checkout line, right? So all of us have these things about us that are uniquely us. And if we can start to like honor them and channel them and put them where they need to be put, then more energetic flow.
I want to come back to two more traps that we want to just discuss as at this stage of the interview, because I think they're going to be helpful. As sort of use cases that are there as you're finding out your genius, you're stepping in your wise effort. It's only natural, just like any other area in our lives, that we will get caught up in things. And one of the traps that, we'll still get caught up even if we know, and it's the deepening of the lesson, and that's increasing our awareness. We'll get caught up in the trap. This was number 6 that I identified. You'll get caught up in the trap of self-limiting stories that feel true but aren't facts. I mean, this happens to me on a regular basis, just like anybody else. Talk to us about that trap, the trap being thoughts like, I'm behind, this is just who I am, it's too late, which a lot of people deal with. It's too late to do anything. Even if I've listened to this fantastic podcast and I have this genius, it's too late for me in my life, in my career, in my stage where I am. So that's the trap. If that's the trap, what's the way out from that trap?
Okay, I'm going to tell you the way not out.
Okay,
And then I'll tell you the way out.
Tell me.
And I may pull you into this now that you've brought your own personal story, and now I know I can do this with you. Actually, why don't I demo it first? I'm going to show you two ways of responding to these types of thoughts that are unhelpful. And then I'll show you a way of responding that's helpful. Okay, so pick something kind of real and kind of hot for you. Like, don't pick something that you're like, oh, kind of figured this out already, and I'm just going to give her something easy. But like a thought or a self-limiting belief that bugs you, like currently.
Okay.
And would you be willing to share it?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was really young, I was working on so many different things, so many different responsibilities. And then I found that I'm taking on the priorities of everybody else. So a huge part of what has helped me in my career and my success is just focusing in and trying to just do one major business venture, especially at a time. Mm-hmm. I'm in a stage of my life right now where through some of that success, I have a lot of people that want to work on stuff, and I'm working on some stuff with my sisters, and I have a friend that I'm working on stuff with as well. And I'm feeling like I'm stretched thin. And one of the limiting beliefs that I have, and I don't know if it falls in this category, is that like, I actually just don't know if I can do this. And I've only been successful through focusing on one thing at a time. And now I have multiple things that are there. And I just even get nervous about the idea of, will those things be successful to begin with? And those projects are all moving forward. Like, there's no signs that they're not successful in this moment. But I have this belief that I can't do it because I haven't done it before. Is this hot enough?
Yeah,
is it good enough? Does it feel like?
Yeah. So
am I dancing around it, or does that feel real?
The core belief you thought is, I can't do this because I haven't done it before. I'm going to pull back the curtain like Wizard of Oz for a moment. Okay. So what I'm doing here is that our beliefs can be true. Our beliefs can be not true. Both can coexist, and it doesn't really matter. What matters is, when you are believing that, what is it obstructing for you in terms of your values and how you want to act? This makes sense?
Yeah.
So oh my gosh, it'd be like feared experience. Like, it may be kind of true sometimes that you haven't done it before, and so therefore it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
Because what we do with practice gets better, right? And that it also may not be true. It may totally work out. Your mind is dichotomous. It wants to choose which is which, okay? So we have this belief, I haven't done this before, it may not work out. And then you have this little bit of loss of control because you got all these other cooks in the kitchen. And we talked about this before, your genius. When that loss of control happens, your genius of responsibility wants to take the reins, right? And it comes in with this fear, like, I haven't done this before, therefore it might not work out.
Yeah, I'll go to either maybe trying to control the project because I have a fear of it not working out, or I'll go in the other direction, which is I'm just not giving the attention that it needs. And I could see myself falling into, both of those things when I believe that sort of story.
Right. So it's very much like when you're driving a car and you see like an accident on the side of the road, your car gets pulled in another direction than where you want it to go. You either go into over control or not doing it when you believe that story. Okay. So one analogy that I have is to imagine that story is written over like the palm of your hand. And what would be the exact story? Like, what would you write on the palm of your hand that directs you, that gets you off track?
I think it's kind of like what you said, is that the belief that I haven't been successful in the past working on multiple things, that I'm afraid that I've taken on too much and it's not going to work out. Is that clear?
Mm-hmm. I'm afraid that I've taken on too much and it's not going to work out.
And I'm not good enough to execute on the responsibilities that I have.
And I'm not good enough to execute on the responsibilities that I have. Okay, so when that comes up in front of you, imagine that belief is like right in front of your face. It's written across your hand, and hold it up in front of your face. Okay. How well can you see me when that belief is dominating your experience? Okay. Now, as I said, there may be some truth in that belief. So what I would like for you to do is take that hand and put it down at your side, and you would look at it from time to time to check in. It's not ignore it, right on top of it, tie your hand behind your back, replace it. That's old school psychology. We think we just need to replace your thought with a positive thought. But if you're replacing that thought with a positive thought, like you can do it. You are good enough, Dhru. You are, if I were to tell you all those things, you know what you would do? You put your hand back in front of your face and argue your side.
For sure.
Okay. So that's one aspect of it, is that thought. That thought is an experience that's going through your mind. It tends to push you around. What I actually want you to do as well is put out your other hand. And with this hand is, what is it that you care about in this in your entrepreneurial pursuits with your sisters? What is it you care about that you want to make with them? Not the product, but why are you pursuing it?
We have such a great relationship. We love working with each other. It's just fun. It's fun. The process is actually fun.
You care about being in the fun process, creating, and the relationship with your sisters.
Yeah, and I want them to have that as well too, because I know they enjoy that as well. And I want them to be financially rewarded for that as well. And wow, like we've put in a lot of effort in a beautiful way to get to where we are, where we actually really enjoy working with each other. And it doesn't mean that stuff doesn't come up, but how we handle it is like
the dream?
Incredible. Yeah.
Isn't this the dream?
Totally. It's totally a dream.
Like you built forts when you were like 7 and now you're building, businesses. So I care about fun. I care about sharing. I hear in there giving. I care about relationship. I want to give to them some of the financial freedom that okay. So this hand, we got one hand, it's heavy, the weight of that thought. We got this other hand, which is the values. Here's what I want you to do. Okay, this is very physical. I want you to take those values and I want you to put them right on top of that thought. And feel what that feels like. I'm afraid this won't work out. And I'm guided by sharing. I'm afraid that the only things that have worked in my life are when I've done it myself. And I'm guided by fun. I'm afraid that this all just may be a mistake or whatever. And I'm guided by my relationships. And so if you're guided by that, you could put one hand on top of it. You could put one hand under it. You could put one hand all the way over it. You could put one hand on your heart and your values over your hand on your heart. But the idea here is to have the values hand be the guide. Because the fear isn't going to go away. This is an old fear, and it'll push you around, and it's probably going to show up from time to time and get really loud and really scary. And blah, blah, blah. But as long as it's in front of your face, your values you can't even see. So that's the practice. We hold space for our thoughts. We hold space for our fears. We hold space for our full human experience. But we're guided by the deeper why. And then if none of it works out, you can be like, did we have fun? Yep. Was our relationship built? Yep. Did I share what I had to share? Yep. Okay, it's a success.
And I've been in plenty of times in my life through my career where maybe that specific idea didn't work out. And it was the pivot that took you to the thing that was the unlock. And
Always.
All of a sudden, you hit a whole new heights in whatever the pursuit is.
More than that. We are in labyrinths, not mazes. Labyrinths have twists and turns. Mazes have dead ends. So if you think things are dead ends, you have to start at the beginning, you're on the wrong track. You just keep on moving forward and it's twist and turn and,
Well, you broke it down. This was number 7. You're
Yeah.
confusing your goals with values. And goals alone can't carry you through difficulty. And if I think about my audience and the things that they would want to pursue, their goals and dreams in life, especially embarking onto this new year, 2026, when you reflect on them, you know, if you really sit down, you don't want it all to be easy. And I don't mean that in the sense of that things can't be easy, but it's not that you want something handed to you. We can all imagine, and it'd be nice to have a lottery ticket. And sure, yes, that would be there. But I'm talking about the real goals that we actually want to make progress on in our life. We want to put in the work because we know that's actually where the unlock is. That's how we become the human being that we want to step into and self-actualize. And And I think that when we fall down, as we all will, it's remembering that it's not that pursuit of that goal, just like you were saying in the analogy of building this business with my sisters. It's actually the value that's underlining it that helps us realize that, yes, I want this outcome. Sure. I want to be financially successful with this pursuit. I want to make products that, customers are very happy and we have raving fans around. And what I also really, really want is I want to enjoy the building of the process, because that's the whole thing. I've been in plenty of situations where I've had that exit and I'm looking to how can I get back into the early stages where it was so fun of actually building that thing from the beginning with people that I love and care for.
Yeah, that's where the magic is. And if you could apply that same principle to all domains of your life, to your exercise, to your parenting, to your relationships, to your entrepreneurial pursuits, then you have the magic of it. I mean, you have the this is what it's about. Because at the end of the day, even if those things manifest and you didn't do it in a way that was aligned with your values, they will be empty. It will feel empty. It will feel meaningless. If they don't manifest, but you did it in a way that's aligned with your values, you will feel satisfied and meaningful, maybe disappointed, that the things that really matter, focusing your energy on what really matters, those are what bring us fulfillment, not the outcome.
As we're winding down today, and you've so beautifully covered these 7 big ideas that are in your book. Again, it's out there with a link in the show notes, Wise Effort. Final thoughts and messages you want to leave for the audience?
I think that, one final thought and message is that the world needs your genius. We need everyone's genius to show up right now for our planet, for our kids, for each other. And we also need a healthy dose of values and wisdom. So if you're engaging in that, it's not just about you and you feeling better in your life, but it's about the ripple effects of us doing that collectively. So spot the genius in others, highlight it, point it out. I do this all the time. You are a genius at that. I just love that about you. And then start seeing it in yourself, and then start putting those genius qualities into the places that needs it most. And tend to your own soul and your own garden, and also tend to others as well.
So many people feel that it's selfish to pursue their genius. And I'm generalizing here, but just hearing from my audience and having a great relationship with them and being raised by 2 incredible sisters, and also shout out to my mom as well too. I think there are some forces that are in there in the world that women in particular feel that they've been taught by society that it's selfish to pursue, to invest in your health, that it's selfish to pursue your genius, that it's selfish. And really what I'm hearing from you, and again, men deal with this too. This is a human condition, right? So it's not just a woman thing, but I'm just connecting with my audience because I hear from them regularly. But I'm hearing from you that part of the twist that you're putting on this at the end of this conversation here is that it's actually selfish for you not to pursue that because the world needs you. Is that fair?
Yeah, the world needs you. And when you start doing that, as you have done, Dhru, by doing a podcast like this, they receive that energy of you pursuing what you love and what brings you energy, and it energizes them. And then we become a system that is generative, positively generative, as opposed to these systems that are draining, and we're competing and we're battling each other for limited resources. So yes, when you really tune in to what your strengths are, what your wisdom inside of you and around you tells you that you need to do to feel full and feel like you're being truthful, radically honest with yourself, that will benefit others tenfold. It'll benefit your kids for sure, because they're reading into your nervous system. It'll benefit your work because they'll be like, great, you're not putting your energy into places that don't really matter to you and you're kind of like half-assing. It'll benefit your health. Your body will respond. It's amazing how much your body responds when you start treating it with this like deeper knowing of what it needs. And you'll want to move and you'll want to eat well, because that is actually the kindest thing that you can do for yourself.
Dr. Hill, thank you for reminding us that the unlock to wise energy is tapping into our genius. And that actually, if you step into 2026, running the old patterns, running the same habits that were there before, not giving yourself love and energy, that's super selfish. And audience, don't be selfish. Give the world the gifts that only you have, because we're counting on you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Hey, YouTube, if you enjoyed what you just saw, keep watching for more great content on how to improve your brain and your life.
That's where I think community is really important. It gives you psychological safety to share. Have friendships where people will say, I think you might be making too much of that.